Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have 3 brand new stories. In the first, we'll tell you how our OP stood up for his neighbor after his driveway was blocked. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Block my driveway, spoil your evening. I got home at 4 p.m. and found my neighbor's driveway blocked by a parked car. Their driveway has official red "Do Not Park" painting on one side of the curb and is obviously an active driveway, with a "Do Not Block" sign on the garage door. There's no excuse for blocking, still it happens a lot, way more than it should. A contractor friend had his truck parked in our neighbor's garage and had been waiting around 20 minutes for the driver of the car. He had called parking enforcement to report the car about 10 minutes earlier. Parking enforcement in San Francisco is horrible, especially around this time. A lot of streets turn to no parking, so a ton of tow trucks are handling these violators, plus they change shifts at 5. So, no show on parking enforcement after 45 minutes. My partner decides to let the air out of the rear passenger tire. It wasn't totally flat, but flat enough. Another 30 minutes go by, no parking enforcement, no driver. I then decide to apply a technique I read on Reddit. I put a small pebble in the air cap on the front passenger tire and replaced it. I could hear the air slowly leaking. We then all went up to my place and waited. 15 minutes later, still no parking enforcement, but the driver shows up on her phone as she looks around, hops in her car, and off she went. We raced downstairs to see where she was, and she seemed to have disappeared. We walked down to the corner, and sure enough, she'd turned right and was parked in the first spot, flashers on, a handicap spot. She was out of her car and on her phone. We hear her saying, "And now I'm going to be late to the meeting, you guys, because the universe hates me and I have to change a tire. I have a flat tire." She proceeds to take everything out of her trunk to get to her spare. The funny thing is, because of the way she parked, there was a huge bush blocking any view of her front tire that was now completely flat. I was loving it. I strolled by at least 3 times over the next 45 minutes while she tried to figure out how to change a tire. She must have phoned a friend at some point to help her because she had another girl helping, dressed nearly identical, yoga pants and big sweatshirt assisting. I then went out to check on them after another 20 minutes, and when I rounded the corner, she was gone. Damn. At first I was thinking they realized that the tire wasn't damaged and drove to a gas station. There are 2 about 2 blocks away. I continued to walk up the street a bit to see if I could spot them. Sure enough, they were pulled over again a block up, flashers on. She must have discovered her second flat. I hope she had a spare. At that point, I was totally satisfied with my petty revenge. And our second story. Can't leave till the moving truck is full. In college for a couple of years, I worked with one of the many local moving companies that use cheap college labor to haul people's stuff around during the season. The team lead was a quiet bull, QB, of a man who gave no crap but took none of it either. He was a professional mover. The guy can put 2 straps around a fridge and walk it up 3 winding sets of stairs and not cause any damage to walls, ceilings, or device. He also could estimate the volume of stuff in a room or house that required moving and know how much space it would take when packaged and secured, and which truck to use for each job. It was an impressive talent. His personal life was a mess, and he was always getting together and breaking up with the same woman for all the years I knew him. May have had some problems with drinking and the occasional assault, but nothing kept him from coming to work and was always the professional. The owner of the moving company knew QB was talented and reliable and paid him an hourly salary plus profit sharing of the business. He also let QB do what he did best and kept all paperwork and administrative things out of QB's way. We were now at the end of the season and were no longer running from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. moving people's stuff for 6 days a week. I'd started school again, so I was only available on weekends. Most of the time I would work for most of Saturday and the occasional Sunday, but nothing much happening otherwise. This particular Saturday, we'd been called for an estate clearing, i.e. go in, pack, and move all the furniture that had not been sold or whatever, and move it to the company's storage facilities. As the moving company owner was on vacation, his son, OS, decided to come and look after the crew and make sure the business can run without his father. This is sarcasm, by the way. The son was exactly what you would expect from someone who grew up lacking nothing and working on a business degree. The way the jobs worked, QB would go scout ahead at some point during the estimate and schedule the moving date. Make sure that the crew would have either the 9-foot, 15-foot, or semi for the job, and get the moving blankets, dollies, etc. ready for the day's moves. For this job, he had determined that even though the estate had a lot of things in it, the 15-foot truck would suffice since items could be easily stacked with no issue and moved to storage without damage. For estate/storage jobs, since there were no time constraints, we usually got paid hourly, which was regular plus a couple of extra bucks since there were no tips. We were expected to be efficient, but not having a specific time frame as we didn't need to be somewhere else afterwards. Day of the clearing, myself and the other knucklehead of the crew show up, and there's QB, red-faced and looking very miffed. There's OS, and he's pulled out the semi. Conversation taking place was that the estate was being billed for the 15-foot truck, and the semi was overkill. OS was arguing, saying that whoever did the estimate was wrong, and that he had gone over and determined that the semi was appropriate. QB was not happy, and we could tell. When he was like this, we minded our own. Before we left to go to the estate, we got our stuff ready and heard QB talking one last time with the OS about the size of the semi and how the 15-foot was easier to move. OS, feeling his authority questioned, told QB that he was wrong, the estimate was wrong, and the semi was what was needed. He also told QB that once we got there, we were to fill the semi up and not move an inch until it was full. We were to leave nothing behind, and once the truck was full, make it back to storage where OS would be expecting us to unload. QB got that look of a cement block settling and very quiet. He just nodded and motioned to us to get in the semi and get to the estate. It was 8:30 a.m. when we arrived. The usual tedium or sweat, grunts, and lifting of stuff and boxes took place. This was a 5-bedroom house with mostly furniture and bedding, dressers, etc., no appliances, and a room full of boxes. QB was so PO'd, he burned his energy moving the biggest, heaviest pieces by himself, while we got the other things that needed moving. It took us about 3 hours to finish loading. At that point, less than a third of the semi was full, since QB was also packing and securing everything for the transport part. Once done, we did a couple of walkthroughs, picked up scraps of packing, and cleaned up after ourselves. QB got that nice smug look, locked up the truck, motioned us to follow. We then went to the back of the house where there was a nice yard with some shade, sat down on the lawn. Around lunchtime, we got some pizzas and sodas and went back to enjoying the quiet suburban setting we were in. It was a nice fall day, so we all dozed off at different times. Around 4:30, OS arrives with his nice BMW, looks at the truck loaded and locked, and starts looking for us. He finds us in the back and starts screaming at me and the other guy with the occasional look at QB. QB takes a breath, gets up off the ground where he was napping, rotates his neck and shoulders, and walks up to OS, who's now starting to look visibly concerned. QB repeats back to him that his instructions were for us to move when the truck was full. The truck was mostly empty, so we did not move. He also reminded OS that we're still on the clock and for him to decide how he wants to play this, as we had a couple of hours' work to unload at the storage warehouse. OS started to say something, but QB's look may have looked like someone waiting for an excuse to lay some whoop butt. He made a face-saving attempt to inspect the house and make sure nothing was left, which was not, and then told us to take the semi to the warehouse for unloading and storage. We unloaded in less than an hour since we were nice and rested from a day of napping outdoors. When the owner returned, he called QB and us for an explanation of what happened and why his son was complaining about slow, lazy workers taking advantage of the company. QB told what happened and how his son's instructions caused the issue. The owner knew enough of QB to know that he didn't BS and did not suffer crap well. End result, OS was never allowed to run any moving crews again while QB was with the company or countermand standing estimates ever again. And our last story. Tenant pays for his rudeness with cash. The stakes here are small, but it was done in a professional context. My job. I own and manage several mid-sized multifamily rental properties, apartment blocks. I'm very hands-on and I deal with most day-to-day issues as well as the investment side. Great returns this way. I choose most of the tenants personally, and most of them are great people. They appreciate my hands-on work and the fact that I love my job and strive to provide the customer service that a good hotel would. There are some exceptions. One of my tenants is a charming young woman with a good job, friendly and easygoing demeanor, with a total D-bag boyfriend. And it was a 6-month battle to get him on the lease since he lives there full-time now and from what I see doesn't contribute to rent. Not my problem, though. Until I get a call from him, politely, odd he's not usually polite, saying he clogged the toilet and asks if I can call a plumber or fix it before his girlfriend gets home. Happy that he's being polite, I went over there and was there in 20 minutes. It turned out he dropped a bottle of hair gel into the bowl and for some reason flushed it. It was jammed in the P-trap of the bowl, just out of sight but within reach. I got on my elbow gloves, reached in and pulled it out. He stood watching me with this scumbag Steve smirk on his face. I suggested that next time he just reach in and grab it himself before calling me. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "I don't reach into toilets, dude. I'm going to school so I don't have to touch other people's crap." I told him, "You'd be surprised how much that pays, though. Your bill will be in the mail." I went home, called 3 plumbing contractors, and asked them each what their emergency service rate was. The average was $180 for the first 45 minutes flat. I sent a bill to scumbag tenant for $180. He refused to pay. I filed a dispute at the tenancy office and included in my evidence the 3 quotes I'd received. I got my judgment today, $180 plus the $50 filing fee. A landlord is allowed to change market rate to repair damage that a tenant causes intentionally or through negligence. Now he knows that. Next time, he'll reach into the toilet himself. All he had to do was keep his dumb mouth shut and I would have fixed his problem for free. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.